So I want to talk to you guys about something that is a dark subject, but it has to be said. This has to be said. And I want to talk to you guys about something that I am just extremely sick of. Catholics, okay? I am sick of Catholics. I am tired of Catholics, everyone. Tired of them. Just tired of these people. Why? Because Catholics will cover up for sexual abuse. They will. Catholics will cover up for it. As long as the abuser is a man of the cloth, they don't mind his crimes being covered up. They don't mind the predator using the sacrament of confession to hide behind religion and to escape the law. They don't mind that. The Australian government said that the presence of predator priests is so problematic that when priests in the confessional hear another priest tell them about the sexual abuse that they have done, that the priest who heard the confession needs to go to the authorities. Who objected to this more than anyone else? In fact, you know what? No, not even more than anyone else. Who was the only person? Who were the only people complaining about this? Who were the only people objecting to this? I don't have to tell you. There's no multiple choice here. I mean, the answer is extremely obvious. You don't have to guess. Catholics. Catholics were the only people objecting to this. And it wasn't just priests who were objecting to this. It has been major authorities within the Catholic apparatus, within the institution of the Catholic Church. Bishops, archbishops, the whole damn lot. And do you know who else objects to this? Lay people. The Catholic laity represents everything wrong with the Catholic Church. Everything wrong in the Catholic Church. Everything wrong in the Catholic Church that a lot of you trads complain about is found in the congregation. It is a reflection of the Catholic layperson. Because the Catholic layperson says, oh no, that's my priest, he would never do anything wrong. But then when the government says, hey, some of these priests are actually hearing private confessions in which sexual abuse is being admitted to, and they need to report this to the authorities, the Catholic layperson is up in arms over this. Up in arms over this. But Catholics love to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. And they love to talk about, oh, Jeffrey Epstein and the Democrats were with him and the Republicans were with him, and there was a cover-up and he was sexually abusing minors, and it was this huge network of sexual abuse and blah, 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 sex trafficking. And that's all bad unless it's done by a man of the collar. The cover-up is bad unless it's done by a man of the collar. When a man of the collar, when a man of the cloth, when a man of the lapel, whatever you want to call it, covers up for sexual abuse or commits sexual abuse and his crimes are covered up behind the masquerade of religion, that's okay. You guys have no issue with that. How do I know this? The Australia example is a perfect example. And then you have people who will tell me, like the guy that I debated last time. I debated him in the last Ask Me Anything Friday. He told me all these stories of sexual abuse, yeah, I think they're all just faked up. All of them are faked up. They're all fake. And these people have warped minds. The guy that I debated has a warped mind. All these people have warped brains. They have double standards. What's done outside of the Catholic Church, that's bad, it's evil. But what's done within the Catholic Church has to be protected by all costs. Has to be protected by any means. And they will use word gymnastics, they will utilize sophistry, any sort of manner of deception. They will use it to try to win the argument. Twisting words, generalizing specifics, belittling facts. Catholics will do all this stuff. And I'm not even entirely sure if they realize that what they're doing is Holocaust denial tier logic. Like the Holocaust, that didn't happen. Armenian genocide, that didn't happen. The rape of Nanking, that didn't happen. The molestation of tens of thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of minors by Catholic priests over the decades, that didn't happen. Nothing means anything to them. Facts, statistics, studies, it all gets thrown out the window by these people. And that's what pisses me off more than anything. I am sick and tired of Catholics. Not saying every Catholic is this way, but enough of you are. And it's freaking annoying. It's so annoying. It's not just annoying. In a way, it's a relief. Because seeing the truth of something, regardless of how aggravating it may be, is a relief. Because then you can understand the reality of what you're inquiring into or what you're looking at. Because many times we as humans, we look at things with rose-colored lenses. We look at things through our own perspectives, and we can see something that's not there. Or if we don't see it, we can pretend that it's there. Or we can brush it aside. Or we can explain it away. Oh, molestation in the Catholic Church? Oh, that's just exaggeration by the media. Oh, and then you actually go to the Catholic Church and then you meet one gay priest and there's another gay priest and there's another gay priest. Here's a priest who was a molester. Here was a priest who was defending a molester, and you're like, holy shit, this is pretty bad. What's going on here, guys? But you guys love to belittle things, and you guys use religion to cover up for crimes. That's the most disgusting thing. But it's a relief that I know these things, because I don't have to brush away the facts. I don't have to try to explain it away. I don't have to try to explain to people, well, it's an exaggeration. I don't have to do all that bullcrap. I don't have to utilize word gymnastics to try to explain away reality. I can just accept reality. And there's something about that is, in a way, relaxing. Like, oh yeah, the problem in the yeah, it's real. Oh yeah, the the network of pedophiles in the church, sexual predators in the Catholic Church. Oh yeah, 100%. That's real. It's all real. Oh yeah, the cover up by the Vatican. Yeah, it's real. I'm not going to sit here with my hands held together and pretending to be something that I'm not. Pretending to be this indiscriminate apologist for this institution. I don't have to sit here and pretend to be this person who is so loyal that I will just either belittle the facts or try to explain it away or try to delegitimize it just so I can defend the institution like some crazy politician who doesn't mind murdering millions of people for the good of his country. I don't want to have that kind of mentality. Or I don't know, the Nazi doctor who doesn't mind doing experiments on innocent people because, well, it's for the good of some crazy cause. I don't want to have that mentality. I don't want to have that the mindset of the indiscriminate follower who's just filled with sophistry and obeisance, and will just try to, no matter how evil the reality is, no matter how dark it is. Oh no, that's it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Well, you know, this priest, he molested 32 children. Well, it doesn't matter. His hands are consecrated. Like, there's no limit to these people. There's no limit to the depths of evil that these people will accept in order to advance whatever theological narrative they have. Oh, this priest is a serial molester. He's a predator. Oh, his hands are still consecrated. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. Like, there's no limit. There's got to be a limit to all this stuff. If a guy is a molester, if a guy is a complete pervert, if a guy is, you know, if you have multiple priests doing horrible, disgusting things to each other, I don't have to tell you guys what it is. You guys know. If they're doing disgusting things to each other and then they're going to the sacrament, that's a limit. Like, there's got to be a line. There's got to be a line. But there's no line with you people. There's no limit. Like, I remember I went to Italy, and I hung out in this monastery, and the mother superior of the woman who was running the whole monastery. I don't know if they call her a mother superior or whatever. The woman who was running the whole thing, Sister Maria Gloria Riva. She was telling me about how one of her best friends is a Kabbalist master, and she considers him a saint. And in this monastery, I didn't see this myself, but I saw the photos. They had this five-pointed triangle on the floor, candles on the points of the five-pointed star, candles on each point of the star, and then they had a picture of a nun who died, and they were praying for her soul. Like, it was some witchcraft stuff. And I saw this with my own eyes. I went to San Marino, and I went into this monastery, and they had like the most weirdest art ever, like just weird, like naked men, some guy laying on the front of his body, his backside's up in the sky, and he's got his hand like just weird stuff. But I saw this with my own eyes, and I was like, what the hell kind of artwork is this? But this was in a church. This was in a monastery. They had this. And the nun said, oh, no, it's part of an art exhibit. It's part of an art exhibit. It's art. It's art. It's art. And then I reported all this to one of the nuns who was a part of this very order. You know what she told me? Well, we need to pray. We need to pray, and nothing got done. Nothing got done. So Kabbalah and Sodom artwork, that's okay. Like, there's no limit. There is no limit. Once you start saying the hands are consecrated no matter what, this guy could be a serial murderer. His hands are consecrated. That is it. Well, it's like, then you can say, well, you could argue, well, the person may not know. Okay, fine, the person may not know. And God has mercy on that lay person who doesn't know that this priest is a complete Satanist. But what if you do know? What if you know? There's got to be a limit. There has to be a point where the lay people put their feet down and say, no, enough is enough. We can't handle this anymore. There's a rule in the Catholic Church that people who are homosexual can't be priests. Why are they ordaining all these homosexuals? They do it all the time. Why are they doing it? There's no limit, because the lay people don't say enough is enough. That's the thing. Because ultimately, the people who control the Catholic Church are the lay people. Because if the lay people stop donating money to the church shuts down. So ultimately, it's the people who have the power. So the people are the ones who are allowing all this to happen. And then when someone like myself comes over and says, hey, this is pretty bad, this is pretty messed up, you have to do something about this, they get mad at me. I'm evil, I'm whatever. I'm a terrible person, whatever it is. But just to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, because what they say is, well, what these people say is, if somebody molests children, someone's a serial molester, they're molesting children, and they go to the confessional and they tell the other priest, he says that he molested children to the person who's hearing the confession. The confessor cannot go to the police. That is insane. It is insane. And then they make these arguments and say, well, what molester is going to go to a confessional? What's the point of this law? What's the point? It has happened. It has been documented to have happened. Yes, you have had priests who have gone to the confessional and said that they have molested children. And the person hearing all this doesn't go to the authorities. That's a cover-up. Now, Catholics complain about Jeffrey Epstein and the pedophile networks and all that stuff. Pedophile networks, the Democrats, Clintons, but this is okay. But they're doing the same thing when they cover up for pedophilia under the cloth of confession and religion and sacraments. So as long as it's done behind the veneer of religion, it's okay. So you're using religion to cover up a crime. That's what you guys are doing. And the point of the sacrament wasn't to cover up crime. The point of the sacrament of confession was to help people be better. And if a person is a sexual molester and he confesses that crime to the person hearing the confession, in the confessional, if he is truly repentant, because I heard this argument, and I'll read to you guys the quote, that, well, we can't force priests to go to the authorities if they hear confessions of crimes. We can't. Because the person making the confession, he needs help, and how is he going to get help from the confessional if he's too afraid to go to the confessional? If someone is truly contrite, if someone is truly repentant, they will go to the law. If someone is truly repentant, then they are willing to go to justice. And if that person is not willing to go to justice, and if he wants to hide behind religion, and if he wants to protect himself behind the curtain of sacraments, then that person's not really contrite. He's not really repentant. He's not. Now let me give you guys some examples here, okay? I took some notes here. Catholic clergy who objected to the Australian law about priests having to go to the authorities to report crimes of sexual abuse told to them by other priests in the confessional. Okay, you guys got that. These are major leaders. Melbourne Archbishop Peter Comensoli, one of Australia's most senior and vocal bishops. Bishop Greg O'Kelly, Apostolic Administrator of Adelaide. Sydney Archbishop Anthony Fisher. These are major leaders in the church in Australia. These aren't just small fries. These are big-time leaders, which really goes to show you that the motivation to cover up for these criminals is not just in the priests. It's all the way up in the damn top of the whole thing. Here's a quote from the Daily Beast, and it talks about this priest named Thomas Reese. Thomas Reese is an American Jesuit priest and author of this book that I won't name because I don't want to promote this bullshit. So now this Reese guy, according to the Daily Beast, this is what this Reese guy argues. He argues that lifting the secrecy on confession could instead actually make things worse because it would likely keep offenders of all kinds away from the confessional where they might instead be rehabilitated. Out of fear, they'd be reported. Now, I have heard this bullshit so many times. I have heard this nonsense before. Well, if the priest has to go to the police to report the crime, well, the molester, he's not going to be rehabilitated. He's not going to get better because he's not going to want to go to confession. Hold on a second. A person who's truly repentant, someone who is truly contrite, wants to be forgiven, is going to go to the law. He's going to be willing to go to the law. He goes to confession, he goes to the law. He shouldn't be afraid to go to the law. If he doesn't want to go to the law, he's not repentant. He's a convict. He's a runaway criminal at this point. It's such nonsense. There's a verse in the New Testament where St. Paul says that the law was not made for the just. The law was made for the unjust. So molesters are unjust. The law was made for them. I mean, it's so simple. Common sense. I mean, really, common sense, guys. The common sense. But the New Testament, that's thrown out the window because apparently St. Paul doesn't mean anything to these people. What matters to these people is some theological system, some theological apparatus that they have in which they can find loopholes, they can manipulate to create those loopholes by which they can justify their actions. That's really what it comes down to. And for those of you who say, well, Ted, all this molestation stuff, that's all part of the 1960s, 70s, 80s. That doesn't happen anymore. I have heard this nonsense numerous times from people. It's complete garbage. Let me tell you guys why it's complete garbage, okay? Because victims, many times, we're talking about young people here, children, many times they are terrified to talk to people because they are ashamed. So that's why victims came out later on to talk about these things. So how do we know that these things aren't happening now, and then decades from now we're going to hear more and more people coming out saying, hey, this happened to me also? Because I can guarantee you, decades from now, more and more people are going to come up. Maybe even in less time. They're going to come up and say, yeah. We're going to hear more of this stuff. Because the cycle of abuse doesn't go away. It does not go away. And this whole thing about rehabilitation. Oh, so instead of going to prison, the abuser can just go to the priest, confess his crime, say a few Hail Marys, and then he just goes and drinks wine and eats very expensive meat. Is that what you're telling me? That's not justice. That's a pass. It's amazing. It's amazing, and only non-Catholics can understand this. It seems apparently Catholics can't think of they can't think about this stuff unless, of course, the evil is done outside of the Catholic Church. If the evil is done by non-Catholics or by non-Catholic institutions, the logic that I'm telling you guys right now, they will all agree. They will say, yeah, 100%, Ted. Like if these things were happening in the Protestant Church, and Protestant ministers were confessing their crimes in private, or maybe not confessing, maybe they were showing it off in private, and I said, hey, those pastors need to go to the authorities, something needs to be done, every single Catholic would be giving me a standing ovation. Absolutely 100%, Ted. We agree with you. 100%. We have no issue with what you're saying. But because it's done within the institution of the Catholic Church, all of a sudden it's a problem. So you guys have some serious bias issues. That's an understatement. All this nonsense about rehabilitation. There was a priest who was convicted of child molestation years ago. His name was Robert Herdlicka. Robert Herdlicka was found guilty, and before he was thrown in prison, this priest who I met, Robert L. Kinsel, came out and said, "Oh, please, please put Mr. Herdlicka in a rehabilitation center." Now, when I found out that Kinsel was teaching people that two men can do really disgusting things to each other and it's okay, I did research on Kinsel, and I found out that he tried to defend, or he defended, this pedophile, Herdlicka, and I also found out that Kinsel, on his My Life page, which is kind of like Facebook, I think, on the friends list of his My Life page is a Robert Herdlicka. Maybe he deleted that, but years ago when I was investigating him, it was there, which means that he somehow, it's very likely that he's somehow in connection with this guy. And it's obvious that even after the fact that he did the crime, Kinsel still has sympathies for him. And what's amazing is that when I went to the church that Kinsel was working at, and I told the Monsignor Don Sawyer, that's his name, and I told Sawyer, hey, Kinsel, and I gave him all the evidence. Sawyer said, Ted, why are you saying these terrible things? Why are you saying them? Why are you saying these things? He told me this on the phone. Why are you saying these things? Why? And I'm like, well, hold on. You should be asking Kinsel that. You should be confronting Kinsel. Why are you confronting me? And he started confronting me and getting angry at me. And then I said, well, did you confront Kinsel about the fact that he's still friends with a child molester? And do you know what Sawyer told me? He said, I didn't even bring it up with him. And yes, he talks like that. And I'm like, well, you're supposed to be the shepherd of the flock, and you don't even bring this up with someone? You call yourself the shepherd of the flock? This guy ended up hanging up the phone on my face. It is a cancer that is so widespread that dramatic measures need to be done to fix it. Now, here's another thing that I found interesting. So here is an article from LifeSite News, and it talks about this priest by the name of Edwin Palka. And Edwin Palka has been vocal about the Sodom problem within the church. And he says here that it's still there. Hasn't gone away. All this talk, well, that was back in the 70s. No. It's still in the church. This is what Palka said. He said, many people still don't, I believe most priests still don't understand just how evil the active homosexual or homosexual activist priests and bishops are. So they're still there, and he's saying they're still there. Not understanding the extent of their depravity and wrongly thinking that they are simply normal men who just struggle with their sexual desires and sometimes might fail to remain chaste, but are really, truly repentant when it happens and strive to confess my sins, to do penance and amend my life. Amen. They cannot possibly grasp the hellish depths to which homosexual activist clergy will go to persecute, lambast, punish, humiliate, and blackmail anyone who stands in their way or threatens their way of life. And this is 100% true. It is a mafia. And I remember Robert L. Kinsel had this guy living with him, and I know this because I went to this dinner and Kinsel was there, and there was this guy who I never met before with him, and I'm like, who is this? And Kinsel says, oh, he lives with me. He didn't say they had a relationship, but he said he lives with me. And this was a big, big guy. Okay, let's just say his name was Nick. And one day Kinsel sends me an email saying, "My friend Nick doesn't like what you're saying, Theodore. Hint, hint, threat." These people function like a mafia. They function like a mafia. Then it says here, estimates of the number of priests who are homosexual vary widely. In one article, an associate professor of religious studies at John Carroll University warned as far back as 16 years ago that studies suggested the percentage of Catholic priests who were homosexual could be as high as 50%. That's roughly 16 times more the percentage of gay men in the general population. So the amount of citizens of Sodom in the priesthood is 16 times more than what it is in the general population. That's insane. That means that the Catholic Church is gayer than San Francisco. That's what that means, everybody. Holy moly. Yeah. Now it says here, but that astoundingly high estimate of homosexuality in the clergy is perfectly in line with the revelations of Father Darius Oko, a priest who became world famous in 2013 for his essay on clerical homosexuality with the Pope against homo heresy. In that essay, Oko alleged homosexual priests and bishops had abused seminarians, teenagers, and children, and that there was a gay mafia of powerful clerics protecting these men. According to reliable estimates, it is estimated that about 30 to 40% of priests and 40 to 50% of bishops in the USA have homosexual inclinations. Oko told LifeSite News. It's still there, everybody. It's not going away because the lay people don't want it to go away. That's the bottom line. The lay people don't want it to go away, and that is why I am tired of Catholics. I'm sick of you guys. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.